everybody, I'm Angie Larson. I get to serve as the executive pastor here at Calvary, and I am so honored that you are worshiping with us today. If this is your first time joining us, I want to especially welcome you. Thanks for being here. Today we're going to wrap up our worship series called We Are Calvary. Over the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about what is the mission of the church. And if you're new to church, I think that this is especially relevant, especially for you. But today we're going to take that one more step further. Today we're going to cast a vision for what the church is for. We're going to be asking the question, so what is the church for? Who is the church for? And I think the answer might actually surprise you. So stick with me. Welcome to church. So I've done some traveling recently, and one of the things I love about traveling is talking to people. I know some of you are thinking to yourself like, oh, she's one of those people. Yes, I am one of those people. I am the person who loves to strike up a conversation in an airplane or with someone else in a waiting room or in line for coffee. I am unapologetically that person. Especially when I am traveling, I love to do this because it gives me the opportunity to talk to so many different people all in one place. I think people are fascinating, and I just can't wait to listen and to hear their stories. But inevitably, whenever I'm traveling, and if somebody wants to engage me in a conversation, and not everybody does, but that's okay, but if somebody wants to engage me in a conversation, inevitably the question comes up, well, so what do you do? And if I'm honest, I hesitate a little bit when they ask that question because I feel like it can go two different directions. In a softer way, sometimes I feel like I can answer that question, well, I'm a mom, because that's true. Or sometimes I could say, well, I'm a pastor, because that is also true. But I do know that when I say I'm a pastor, the response is just like what Forrest Gump says, is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you are going to get when you tell somebody that you are a pastor. A couple of years ago, I sat next to this young woman on a plane for hours, and she was even more extroverted than I am. And she started talking to me before I even had the chance to start talking to her. And she was maybe 25 years old, and she was tall and thin and blonde, and she was just this big ball of energy. I found out very quickly that she was from the country of Switzerland because I asked her about her accent. And then she asked me the question, so what do you do? And I thought, hey, well, this might be an opportunity. So I thought I would go with it. So I said, well, I'm a pastor. But then she got serious, and she quickly turns towards me, and she got real quiet. She looked at me in my eyes and said, how can you believe in God when religion has hurt so many people? And I thought, maybe I should have said that I was a mom. These past 4 weeks, Pastor Hans has been unpacking for us what it means to be the church. The mission of the church is this: to lead all people to a lifelong faith in Jesus Christ. And if this is true, then God is calling us to be leaders, leading all people wherever they are, whatever they do, however messy their lives are, to lead all people towards Jesus. And so today we are going to ask 2 questions. The first question we're going to ask is, what is the church known for? And the second question is, what do we want the church to be known for? All right, we're going to tackle this first question. Now, I'm not specifically talking about the congregation of Calvary, but the church as a whole. What is the church known for? My friends, get this. 3 in every 10 Americans say that churches have a negative impact on society today. Not a neutral impact, not a positive impact, but a negative impact. 30% of Americans think the church is negative. In so many circles, the church is seen as irrelevant, judgmental, self-righteous, hypocritical, anti those kinds of people, certain kinds of people. Sometimes the church is seen as political. Maybe the church is known as something that you do just a couple of times a year, to keep grandma happy. Or the church is thought of as a place of rules, a house of rules, a bunch of things that you shouldn't do so you can walk the straight and narrow. Church in the news is often not kind to the church as a whole, showcasing clergy or celebrity leaders that seek more to seek fame for themselves than rather point people to Jesus. And let's be even more honest, church history isn't really that kind or generous to us either. Crusades and cover-ups and corruption, arguments and abuse. Each year here in America and in Europe, less and less people consider themselves to be church goers or to even believe in God at all. Just like the young woman on the plane that sat next to me, they look at the ways where the church has confused religion with the love of Jesus. And they look at ways where the church has acted like a country club for religious folks rather than a safe place for sinners. Where the church has drifted off its mission, that is what they see. And I, even myself, have been deeply, deeply wounded by religion. As a young person, when I was asked to leave the church because of my sins, for far too long, the church has been known about what it's against rather than what the church is for. Which leads us to our second question. Well, if we know what people think the church is for, what do we want the church to be known for? And I think the answers to that question kind of come easily. We want the church to be known for love, for acceptance, for care, for grace, for forgiveness, for peace, for authenticity, for community, for generosity, for joy, for kindness, for peace, for freedom, for Jesus. So what gets in the way all of this? Honestly, I think that it's our need to be right or righteous, to feel like we are in the right camp and that everyone else is wrong, to have the right theology, the right worship style, the right music, the right pastor, the right interpretation of the Bible, the right denomination. And we get so stuck in being right that we miss God and we miss other people. Jesus tells us the story in the book of Luke. Jesus says, on one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. Teacher, he asked, what must I do to inherit eternal life? Well, what is written in the law? Jesus replied. How do you read it? And the expert in the law, he answered, well, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength, and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. When Jesus replied, well, do this, and you will live. But then this lawyer, he wanted to justify himself. So he asked Jesus, well, and who is my neighbor? Let's unpack this just for a little bit. This expert in the law, he is trying to be right. He is trying to justify what he knows from all of his years of studying. So Jesus challenges him. He wants to take this man just a step further. Jesus tells a story. Jesus said, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho. And when he was attacked by robbers, they stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too a Levite, when he came to the place and saw the man, passed by on the other side. I want to look at this part for us just a little bit today. Jesus sets this scene for us. He talks about this road between Jerusalem and Jericho. Now, this road back in that day was actually nicknamed the Bloody Pass. I mean, can you imagine? This Bloody Pass, this area known for danger, for mugging, and from violence, this road from Jerusalem to Jericho. Now, this is a hard road to be walking down. But then this man, he's walking down this road and he is beaten and he's robbed and he's been left half dead. But then by chance, a holy man comes by, but passes by on the other side. I mean, who knows why he doesn't stop? Maybe he's too busy tending to his own church, tending to his own people, people pleasing, so he couldn't be bothered by this beaten man. Or maybe he too is worried that he is going to end up mugged, that his life might be at risk, and that might get in the way of his important work that he has to go to. But then, by chance, another man walks by, a Levite, another holy man. But same story. He does the same thing. Let's continue the story. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. He went to him, bandaged his wounds, putting on oil and wine, and then he put the man on his own donkey and brought him to an inn and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. "Look after him," he said, "and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense that you have." Finally, another stranger passes by, a stranger, a person of a different faith, a person of a different background, a different political party, a different ideology, an entirely different point of view. But it's in this person, this Samaritan, who is moved with compassion. You see, he's willing to see the beaten man, and he's willing to not look away. He's willing to see him as a human being. He's willing to see his wounds, his hurts, and his pains. He's willing to see him as a person worthy of love and worthy of his compassion. But then he doesn't stop there. Instead, he does something about it. He takes a risk. He takes action to ensure that this stranger is taken care of. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. calls this a dangerous unselfishness in his reflection on this parable. And in his final sermon, the night before his assassination, Dr. King said this: "The first question which the priest and the Levite asked was, 'If I stop to help this man, what will happen to me?' But the good Samaritan reversed the question. 'If I do not stop to help this man, what will happen to him?'" What will happen to him, my friends? What would happen to them? Friends, if we looked outside of ourselves, what will happen to those other people? All to those people who are not in the church, all to those people who are out there, the least, the lost, the last, the lowest, our friends and our neighbors who are hurting, those who've been beaten up by this world, who think that they are unlovable, that they are abandoned, that they are looking for anyone who will notice their pain. What will happen to them? What if we are this kind of church? The kind of church that looks outside our doors and wonders with dangerous unselfishness, what will happen to them? What will happen to them if we don't take risks? What will happen to them if we don't stop and see? What will happen to them if we don't cross backgrounds and boundaries and social status and politics to go and help? What will happen to them if we don't invite them in? What will happen to them? This is it, my friends. This is how we live out our mission. This is how we live out the question. This is the vision our church has set for how we are going to do this. We will be a church that cares as much for the people who aren't here as those who are here, and we will help other churches to do the same. But why care about them? Well, let's be honest. Being human is hard. We're not all stranded, mugged, half naked on the bloody past, but being human is hard for all of us. In just the last 2 weeks, 2 really good friends of mine, both breast cancer survivors from the past 5 years, found new lumps. They both had to wait for CT scans and PET scans and biopsies to happen. And I was praying and praying for both of them through the week, through all the anxiety that goes with waiting to see what the news is. They were both just beyond consolation. You see, they had both already suffered chemotherapy and mastectomies and sickness that comes from putting poison into your body in order to try to heal it. And then they both looked towards a future that was unknown, a fear that they might have to do it again. And all they could do was cry and pray and wait. And at the end of the week, one friend's test was benign, and the other's was cancer. Because being human is hard. My daughter Mackenzie, she is doing a semester abroad in Spain. And last week she had to take a train trip from Barcelona to Pamplona, to the city that the university that she's studying at is in. And as she was sitting at the train station waiting for her train, she saw a mom and her young daughter lost and confused. And Mackenzie, who speaks Spanish very well, she went over to this mom and to this daughter and asked them in Spanish if they needed some help. And they looked at Mackenzie and they said, no habla español. So Mackenzie said, well, how about English? And they smiled and said, yes. And Mackenzie said, hey, I'm happy to help you find your right train. They showed her their tickets. Mackenzie walked them over to where they would catch their train. And she showed them how they would find their seat when they got on the train. And then Mackenzie asked them where they were from. And the mother and the girl, they both looked down and said, we just left our home in Ukraine. My friends, being human is hard. It's hard parenting toddlers, and it's hard parenting teens. It's hard finding friends, and it's hard finding yourself. It's hard watching your beloved's memory decline or your bank account decline. It's hard understanding why they did what they did. It's hard if you're on the right path or knowing that you're not on the right path, but not knowing how to get back on the right path. It's hard overcoming addiction and anxiety. It's hard grieving the loss of your loved one or grieving the loss of your dream. My friends, being human is hard. It is so hard that God developed a strategy in order to help us get through the hard, to help us get through the pain and the brokenness, the bruises, the frustration, the hard, tough roads from Jerusalem to Jericho that this life throws at us. Why care about them? Because they're just like us. They're in need of support of a community. They're in need of kindness and authentic people. They're in need of compassion. They're in need of the love of a Savior. And if they don't hear it from us, what will happen to them? My friends, we are God's strategy. We are God's strategy for this vision, to be the church that is for who Jesus was for the least, the lost, the last, and the lowest, to act with dangerous unselfishness, to wonder if I do not stop and help, what will happen to them? My friends, we are God's strategy. And if you're like me and you're like, whoa, I'm not sure I'm qualified, I don't even know what I believe most days, my life is a mess. Well, the Bible never shies away once from people's humanness. It doesn't even try. In fact, the Bible, it actually accentuates their humanness to elevate and tell their story, their complete lack of awesomeness, their complete wreckage, their complete bumbling of the whole thing. People in the Bible that God used drunk and naked Noah, or unwed teenage Mary, or old man Abraham. God used deceitful liar Jacob, and stuttering Moses, and fearful Gideon. God used prostitutes like Rahab, and adulterers like David. God used people like denying Peter and doubting Thomas and worrying Martha and dead Lazarus in order to do God's work. We are God's strategy. My friends, just as you are, you are God's strategy for helping the least, the lost, the last, and the lowest in this hard human life. But here's the truth of it. You will never experience what the church can do for you until you experience what the church can do through you. Through your invitation, through your leadership, through your conversation and your care, through your teaching, through your compassion. My friends, you are God's strategy. And on God's team, everyone gets to play. We need everyone to play. We need you to go out there with dangerous unselfishness. And good news, when you go play, you have nothing to fear. Romans 8 says, what then shall we say in response to these things? If God is for us, then who can be against us? He who did not spare his own son, but gave him up for us all, how will he not also, along with him, graciously give us all things? My friends, God is for you, so you can be for them. So here's our question. What do we want the church to be known for? So my Swiss airplane friend, I learned her name was Zena. She and I, we just kept talking. And I learned that she had been dating someone whose parents didn't approve of her because they didn't share the same religion. And they had forced him to break up with her because she didn't have this religion, and how that heartbreak, it just devastated her and broke her to the core. How instead of inviting her in with compassion, they judged her and pushed her away from their son. And as we got off the plane and our conversation continued, I bought her a coffee and I just listened and until we both got ready to catch our next flight. And she looked at me as we said goodbye and she said, "I wish that Christians were more like you." And I said, "Well, they are. They just don't show up on your Twitter feed." My friends, we are God's strategy. We are God's strategy to be the church that cares just as much for the people who aren't here as the people who are here. To show our families, our community, and the whole world that all of this, all of what Jesus did was for them. That all of Jesus did was for you. That grace is for you. That love is for you. That forgiveness is for you. That joy is for you. That hope is for you. That peace is for you. And generosity is for you. That compassion is for you. And salvation is for you. Because God is for you. For you. Amen.
Thank you so much for joining us for worship today. Please join us in praying the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen.
Hey, thanks so much for joining us for worship today. Here at Calvary, we've been busy focusing on this mission that we've been talking about, to lead all people to a lifelong faith in Jesus Christ. To focus on just as much for the people that are not here as the people that are here. And if you're somebody who's new to Calvary, we would love to connect with you. We do this in one very simple way. If you'll go to our website, calvaryalex.org, and click on the button that says, I want to sign up for emails. Once a week, we send out an email just telling you of all the things that God is doing through Calvary and encouraging you along the way. We would love for you to be a part of that. We're at the time of the year in the church that we call Holy Week and Easter. We're going to have online services available for you right here on Monday, Thursday, and Good Friday, which is April 14th and 15th. And for Easter, we'll be celebrating here in person with 4 services. 1 on Saturday at 6 p.m. and then 3 on Sunday morning. We want to invite you, if you're somebody who's in the Alexandria, to come here to the church in person and join us, because it's going to be so much fun. We also want to make it easy for you to be able to invite people here for Easter. We have created some postcards for you to be able to send out. You can either stop by the church and pick a couple up so that you can invite a couple of friends or neighbors, or give us a call and we'll mail you a couple of postcards so you can do the same. And as we close our time together, we're going to close with a time of offering. Thank you so much for your generosity. It matters so much as we continue to be the church that is just as much for the people that are not here as the people that are here. And you're making a significant difference. There are 4 ways that you can give, and they're on your screen. The first is that you can go to that website, calvaryalex.org, and click on the button that says Give. The second is that you can use our Venmo handle, which is on your screen. The third is that you can write a check and drop it in the mail to 605 Douglas Street, Alexandria, Minnesota, 56308. Or the fourth is that you can call the number on your screen and we'll help you get it figured all out. Thanks so much for joining us. It means the world.